Greetings, my name is Jerry Nettrower II, and this video is being made specifically in the hope that either Tim Pool or Andrew Wilson, or both gentlemen, will see it. This video is being made in relation to the Timcast IRL with guest Andrew Wilson and their conversation on rights. If you want to see that, I'm going to put some clips of it. I've got 2 clips that I want to show from this, and then I'm going to go into what I believe could help clarify some of that conversation, some criticism over that conversation. Because I don't necessarily think either men did, it kind of degenerated into a word salad. And I don't think either men completely did justice to what a right is and what a right isn't. I think they did do an approximate job. I would give them like a C or a C minus, like if it was a grade. He did about a C or a C minus describing it. But what I'm hoping is that this video will do a bit of a better job criticizing that conversation. And hopefully it provides some value that either one of these gentlemen, or both of them, can see and consider whenever they get into another conversation as to what a right is from a conservative's perspective and what a right isn't from a conservative perspective. So I'll go ahead and I will load these videos up and I will play them. And after playing these videos, I'll go ahead and get into the criticism I have about their conversation. And again, if you want to see this conversation in its entirety, I would advocate for you to go to the Timcast IRL. I think it was September 17th or 18th, where he hosted Andrew Wilson. It's about 52 minutes and 10 seconds into the video when they started this conversation. And I just, like I said before, I think it just kind of degenerated, and it didn't, I don't know, maybe it's just I didn't like it, right? So this is my criticism based off those conversations, and here are a few segments of that conversation to give people context of what I'm talking about, and then I'll jump into what I believe would be a better way to describe what a right is and what it isn't. So with that, let me go ahead and press play here, and we can get into that.
But let's look at this objectively too. This idea of rights as a United States citizen, these are really just constructions of the mind. There's no such thing as an actual right. It doesn't exist outside of some axiomatic kind of philosophical principled belief, right? I have the axiom that I have inalienable rights, and so therefore I have them.
Disagree.
Okay, and we can get into that in a second. But to finish my point, okay, based on this, we kind of suspend them all the time and then kind of pretend like we don't. We let cops be judge, jury, and executioner in many moments and kind of excuse them from it. If there's something which is going on that's in such a state of emergency, we'll suspend the constitutional rights of people in a moment's notice. We'll send the Japanese to internment camps. We will do all of those things because we've done it. We'll suspend your constitutional rights in a second if we think we need to, which, by the way, that would be my argument for how I know rights aren't real anyway. But we will, and we just kind of excuse it.
But there's a correction here. Government-enshrined protections are not real. Rights that as we know them, are just things that we recognize as things of value to us. So, for instance, I usually define it as simply, you have a right to speak freely. If you're in the middle of the woods and you're buck naked, you can say whatever you want. You have a right to keep and bear arms. Pick up a stick, sharpen it, pointy stick, you can defend yourself. Ain't no one going to stop you. The question is, when you get into conflict with someone else, where is that line drawn? So the reality is, rights are recognized as things that we can and must do to survive and maximize potential.
I think rights are force, and I think that...
You think rights are force?
Government
rights
protection.
What do you mean rights are force?
You're talking about government protection.
No, I'm talking about period. I'll explain what I mean. A right, to me, is an entitlement absent duty. That's a right.
Okay, and then the second video that I want to show you kind of gets into what is not a right, okay? And that's basically where I'm going to go with my criticism on these videos, is what is and what is not a right. And how I, as a conservative, evaluate that, or how I know something does fall within a right and something does not fall within a right. So let me go ahead, cue up the second video and play it, and you'll see this is, I believe, where Tim goes into what is not a right.
I think we should move on, but I think the challenge is, I don't know if you're unwilling to understand or what. You have no right to take other things from other people, to take their labor. You have no right to force a doctor to perform surgery on you, but you certainly have a right to ask him for it.
Those are just assertions. Like, you just assert these things as though they have a grounding epistemic foundation from which you can make the assertion. Based on where do you make the assertion that you're not allowed to do X, other than because Tim Pool's preference is that you don't?
And I'm literally saying you're talking.
Okay, so here's their argument, and this is, where they get into what is and what is not a right. Again, if you want to see this entire conversation, go to the Timcast IRL, look for the video where he has Andrew Wilson as a guest, and the entire conversation that they get into regarding rights starts around 52 minutes and 10 seconds in. So from here, I'm going to start by saying what I believe a right is. Rights, okay, in plural, rights are a legislative derivative of the Western Judeo-Christian philosophy of the Golden Rule found in Matthew 7:12. Matthew 7:12 is, "Therefore all things whatsoever ye would that men should do to you, do ye so to them, for this is the law and the prophets." Today, we just refer to this as the Golden Rule. Okay? Do unto others what you would have them do unto you. So why do I believe that all rights should be based off the Golden Rule, or that was the intent of our Founding Fathers, right? When our Founding Fathers said this is a right, this is not a right, where did they get that intent? It's because Jesus stated that the entire Old Testament law was based on the Golden Rule, and what he meant by that was that God was not obligated to provide humanity the Old or New Testament, but he provided it anyway. He wasn't obligated to give us the Old or New Testament, but he's like, you know what, I'm going to give them the Old and New Testament so they can see what I expect from them. And then God also was not obligated to enter into human history as Christ Jesus to save us, but he did that anyway. In other words, again, he practiced the Golden Rule. He did unto us what he would have done for himself. So, why the Golden Rule? We as humans cannot achieve perfection in any character trait, right? For example, I can't come out and say, today, I am proud to announce I am perfectly humble, right? I can't do that. That's not possible. I can't come out and achieve a perfect character trait, right? We're always aspiring to be more humble. We're aspiring to be better people, right? We're aspiring, at least I hope that's the way it is, right? As a human being, I hope others, and I get it that some people don't, but that's one of the things that bring happiness into people's lives, is when you strive to be a better human being. And that striving, what the Golden Rule does is it gives humanity the closest proximity to perfection we can achieve as a human being. Okay? In other words, how close can I come to being a perfect human? Well, that depends on how well I can practice the Golden Rule. And a right should be the legal attempt to codify the Golden Rule into law on any particular subject matter. Rights are for people who do not want to practice the Golden Rule by nature while interacting with others, right? This is where we get the idea that rights are universal and alienable and fundamental. Okay, a right doesn't matter. If I come up to you and treat you with the Golden Rule, and you come up to me and treat me with the Golden Rule, we don't need to worry about our rights because we're already fulfilling that requirement in being fair to each other. But if, let's say, I come up to you and I don't want to treat you the same way that I want to be treated, I want to be treated better than the way I want to treat you, well then, you're not exercising the golden rule towards me, so I need a law that says, well, now you have to execute. Now you have to behave in accordance with the golden rule towards me. We're not saying that rights come preloaded as being universal, inalienable, and fundamental. What we are telling people who do not believe in the golden rule, that they are forced by law now to treat us with the universal, inalienable, and fundamental adherence to the golden rule during our interaction with one another. And that's essentially what we're saying when we, at least from my perspective, what I believe, is when we say that rights are universal, inalienable, and fundamental, I'm declaring to you, if you don't want to treat me in accordance with the golden rule, I'm going to make you with this law, right? My right to the freedom of speech. A right should be the act of a legal body forcing adherence to the golden rule while interacting with one another, because that behavior is the best behavior we can achieve as human beings. Rights are not based on the people who naturally want to behave in accordance with the golden rule. Rights are supposed to be how our government legislates the golden rule to people who don't want to practice it within the subject matter between each other. So, yeah, I know, I'm reading off stuff. I'm going to scroll down now. So if we state we have a right to the freedom of speech, and I believe that should protect telling the truth, not trying to deceive or lie to each other, what we are saying is our laws should force us to adhere to the golden rule in regards to our speech, right? When we say we have a right to bear arms, what we're saying is our laws should force us to adhere to the golden rule in regards to defense in the bearing of arms. Essentially, exercising our rights are a legal means to ensure we interact with each other in adherence to the golden rule. Okay, this is why conservatives will say you don't have a right to taxpayer-funded health care, or you don't have a right to taxpayer-funded education. What we are saying is forced labor does not fall under the golden rule, so it doesn't qualify as a right. Okay? This is why conservatives will say to you, you don't have a right to other people's labor because it doesn't adhere to the golden rule as it relates to others in regards to their work. In other words, you're not treating someone else the way you would want to be treated in regards to your work. Now, I put a however in here. However, this is where I agree with Andrew Wilson, because we ignore rights, treating others with the golden rule, when and where we want to. Okay? For example, when people completely ignore the argument, you do not have a right to other people's labor, when we're talking in the context of Miranda rights. Okay? Meaning, if you cannot afford an attorney, we will force the labor of an attorney to be provided to you. Isn't it interesting? You're not entitled to, why do you have a right to the labor of an attorney, but you don't have a right to the labor of a healthcare provider, or you don't have a right to the labor of an educator? This is why I believe the United States legal system is wrong, and our legal system should be reconstructed so that any person can argue their case legally in a court of law successfully without the need to have an attorney provided. Okay, I don't believe, right? Because I do believe if you can afford an attorney, you are not entitled to the labor of an attorney. Plus, there are several nonprofit organizations that offer legal, medical, and tutorial assistance. Why can't the government just promote those nonprofit organizations rather than taxpayer funded? Use a nonprofit. Just promote it. Just say, hey, if you can't afford an attorney, we'll give you a list of nonprofit organizations that offer legal aid for people in your situation. Or you should just have a right to defend yourself in court with the ability to succeed. Our legal system should be reconstructed so that you don't have to rely on an attorney to succeed in court. This is where I do believe Andrew Wilson is right in that we afford people their rights when and where we want to, and we ignore them when and where we don't. As a conservative, I do believe that you don't have a right to an abortion, and I agree with that because what we're saying is an abortion does not fall under the golden rule or a right because it devalues a human life. In most cases, that life is devalued due to the creature comforts of another person. In other words, the mother, right? Because most abortions aren't committed because of some necessity. They're committed because of the creature comforts of the mom. So ask yourself, is an abortion the act of a mother treating her child the way she herself would want to be treated? Should the mother's life be terminated if her life interferes with the creature comforts of other people's lives? This is why, this is also why the golden rule is also why if the unborn life threatens the life of the mother, nearly all conservatives will agree that the unborn life does not hold value over that of the life of the mother. Because within such a scenario, the unborn life, although it's not aware of it, the unborn life is not treating the mother in the way the unborn life would want to be treated. So even though it's an unborn life and it's not aware of its actions, most conservatives will say if the unborn life threatens the life of the mother, then yes, the unborn life can be terminated because the unborn life is not treating the mother the way it itself would want to be treated. Hence, abortion is not a right unless the unborn child is threatening the life of the mother, because that standard is based on the golden rule. Another example of Andrew Wilson being right is when slavery was legal, because it proved slaveholders were not treating slaves the way they wanted to be treated. Another example of Andrew being right is when Jim Crow laws were passed. Again, this fails because it fails to meet the standard of the golden rule. As a person who believes that the golden rule should be the basis of all human rights, I generally oppose laws that oppose the golden rule and advocate for laws that promote the golden rule. When we hear people say Western philosophy or Western culture is under attack, what we're essentially saying is the philosophy and culture of the golden rule is under attack. Rights within Western philosophy or Western culture should be mostly based off the philosophy of the golden rule, and the further we get away from the golden rule when creating laws, the more of a hellhole our country will become. Because when a society creates laws that are not based on the golden rule, then that society is creating laws that elevate one group of people above another, and that lead to oppression and will ultimately lead to war. Anyway, I do hope that either Tim Pool or Andrew Wilson might get the opportunity to watch this video, as I do believe this video has value to offer their conversation. And to everyone else, I hope that if you're not entirely sure what a right is and what it isn't, you might take the time to watch this video, and it might be of value to you to see where we get the idea of what a right is and what it isn't, at least in conservative circles. Again, I'm Jerry B. Nettrier II, and I thank anyone who took the time to watch this video.